Are you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello guys, welcome to our show. Good people, welcome. By the way, I don't want to discriminate bad people. Welcome to our show as well. Anyone who want to learn more about storytelling style, welcome, because today you can't set up generic message because customers never buy your products. You need to create story to share your story that big brands always do, and I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Lazer. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, welcome everyone here, the heroes, the villains, everyone who's a little bit in between. We can all learn about how to tell a great story and how that can help us in business, leadership, and life. So super excited to be here.
Yeah. For me, it's a big pleasure. I love learning more about storytelling style. I always craft my story because, it's boring when you read something without story. It's generic, nothing special. Joe, before we start, just tell more about yourself, experience, background, and why you pay so much attention to storytelling.
Sure, I'd love to. So my name is Joe Lazer. I'm the author of a book called The Storytelling Edge about the science of storytelling and how to use that to build deeper relationships with customers, with people at work, in your everyday life. I am the head of marketing at a company called A-Team, which brings together teams of the best product builders in the world to create transformative products for startups and enterprise companies. For a long time, I was the head of marketing at Contently, which is a company that more or less created the practice of content marketing, was one of the pioneers in the space. And that essentially is the art of using stories, right, as a main vehicle for your marketing, to tell stories about the things that you really care about as a brand, to build deeper relationships with prospects and customers, to deliver value to people, instead of simply just asking them to fill out a form or to hop on a demo call, right? Actually leading with the value that you can present to people. And you can do that through great content that, helps you do your job better, that helps you enjoy your passions in life better. And I believe fundamentally as humans, we are storytelling animals. We're storytelling creatures. So if you actually want to capture someone's attention and you want to build a deeper relationship with them, you can't really do that without stories.
Yeah, nice. Agree. I couldn't agree more with that. Okay, Joe, I love reading books. You mentioned that you wrote your book, and all books have stories. I don't remember
Books do
any
have
book.
stories.
Yeah, it's like story, even to write a book. So, but if we are talking about business books, they are great for sleep, most of them. I can't tell that
Yeah.
all books, but most of them. When you have problems with sleep, you can take a new boring book to read it, sleep well all night, and don't remember anything. But some business books are great. I love reading them. For example, I read a book from Seth Godin, Purple Cow. I love this book. For example, Josh Sugarman wrote great books 40 years ago about how to retain customers longer. And can you tell how to write any piece of content, including books, that can catch attention and retain readers until the end, because bounce rate is high and customers have no time to read boring content. Let me tell more about that. Interesting that I had an episode with Jim Edwards. He has been working in Business Insider 10 years. He started on this company from scratch. Then the company was sold for $500 million, 1,000 employees. And he told the success of Business Insider depends on creating non-boring content. So the niche is boring, but Business Insider changed the strategy to create non-boring content. Can you tell, according to your experience, how to create non-boring content?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Business Insider is a great example, right? Because they saw a niche in the landscape where you had a lot of business content that was like the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times and the New York Times, that the way they approached business content 10 years ago was a little bit drier than they did today. And they saw an opportunity to bring more of that voicey blogger style with still really good reporting. And they're a great example of this. I've done a lot of research with different neuroscientists that study the literal science of storytelling. And what a lot of the research points to is four keys to great storytelling that really are things that writers have inherently known for a long time. So the first is relatability. So you want to tell a story where basically you as the reader or the viewer or the listener, you can see yourself in that story. This is why when we're teenagers, right, like we love teen movies because we can see ourselves in the characters. It's why if you go to watch a rom-com with like Jack Nicholson and Diane Keaton, you're pretty likely to see an audience in there that's like 65 and older, right? Is because we gravitate towards the sort of stories that we can see ourselves in. So when you think about telling a business story that you really want to hook someone, creating that sense of relatability where it's like when I'm writing for other marketers, like this is an experience that I found myself in that was not great, right? Or that was uncomfortable, or that put me with a really hairy problem that I had to solve. That sense of relatability where the reader can immediately say like, oh yeah, I've experienced that. I've experienced that feeling, that situation. That sense of relatability just greatly increases your chance of creating a connection with the audience. But the second key that you really need is tension. And I think tension is best manifested right now in what we would call like a hook. This is probably the buzzword of the year lately when it comes to thinking about social content in particular. It's like, what is your hook for everything you're creating? Because you can't stop people. Oh, sorry. Getting a call. You can't stop people on the scroll without creating a really strong hook. So whether it's like a LinkedIn PDF, those new document posts are like the hottest thing right now on LinkedIn. It's crazy to see the PDF come back. Or it's an Instagram reel or a TikTok reel or a TikTok video, right? Like you need that immediate hook, that text on the screen or that rolling caption that's going to bring people in. That's like, I found myself in this incredibly treacherous situation. Here's how I got out of it. The third is fluency, and that manifests itself as just like a really easy to read experience. A lot of marketers tend to like conflate complexity with authority, but really just writing at like an elementary or middle school level greatly increases your chances of letting someone come in. You want to break down the barrier between you and your audience. And finally, novelty. So you need to introduce something new that they haven't heard before. If you just see like the same exact SEO advice or the same exact business best practices you've read a million times, no one's going to give a crap. But if you can really master that checklist of 4 elements of storytelling: relatability, tension, fluency, and novelty, every time you're creating a piece of content, you're going to greatly increase your chances of success.
Awesome, valuable. Once I spoke with my client who told me he tried to film fake videos about customer reviews, and he paid for some bad actors, to film these videos. But when he asked real customers to create testimonials, the quality was less, but customers can recognize fake from real, and that works. If it's real, if it's not fake. But today, for example, if I go to ChatGPT, I can ask, please write me a story. This tool can do anything. If you ask, write me a story, please add such data. And can you tell how it's important to be honest, real, transparent when you create your story? Because I still get questions from my customers. I don't know how to share my real story. Probably people don't like it. Any insights about that?
Yeah, so let's talk about ChatGPT and storytelling, because the thing is, ChatGPT still isn't good at storytelling. Like, I've tried a million different ways to get ChatGPT to tell me a story that's not going to put me to sleep. And it's really, really hard. It still is. It's very generic. It's very broad. The best use case of this I've actually seen was this professor at Wharton, Ethan Mollick. I wrote about this in my newsletter this week. He asked Bing's AI to learn Vonnegut's rules of writing. So Kurt Vonnegut wrote these like very classic 8 rules of writing. It was like the first thing that I learned when I wanted to become a writer when I was 15 years old. And once he did that, the AI actually wrote this kind of like pretty good, like haunting little 2-paragraph story. But the thing that the AI doesn't have that people are really going to crave, and that's going to become so much, much more important in the years to come, is what I would call like a truly human story. So what inevitably is going to happen right now is that we all have access to ChatGPT. We have access to OpenAI's playground. Bing's AI tool is going to, come out in a larger way. We have Jasper, all these different tools. Much, much easier to create content than ever before. So we already have too much content online. Like, we're already in a deluge of content. And there's now just going to be this flood of AI content that's going to greatly accelerate over the next year. And what I think is going to happen amidst all of that is that as humans, we are going to start seeking out stories that we can authentically feel are coming from a human and not from an AI. And that's going to mean telling very detailed, funny, emotional, personal stories about yourself. That's going to be one of the most valuable assets you're going to have, is being able to tell those personal stories of experiences that you've had, things that you've overcome in your career, times that you've messed up in your life, right? You've messed up at your job, breakthroughs that you've had that you can write about, but maybe an AI can like make up that scenario, but it's not going to feel nearly as authentic as when it comes from you. And I think we're also going to gravitate towards formats in which we can feel confident that you're hearing a human on the other side. So video is going to be more important. Audio is going to be more important. You're ahead of the trend already here, right? Or if it's a written language, if it's a written word, you're going to have a voice that just rips through the page, where you're like, this is not the way that an AI would write. Like, it's funny, it's creative, it's using interesting wordplay. It's not the sort of predictable text predictor cadence that you get from ChatGPT, because that's ultimately all these tools are. These LLMs are just amazing text predictors.
Nice. By the way, it's interesting that almost everyone uses ChatGPT to write text, but I tried something different because people complain that it's not new, it's just rewriting. Okay, grammar stuff is good, looks good, but it's not new. Just the same content that we have today. And you mentioned about novelty. It's important to provide something new. And what I tried on ChatGPT, I wrote my text from scratch and asked ChatGPT to edit this text. I have a few editors in my team. I usually share all text to them. But this time I ask, please estimate the quality of this editing, and I got reply, nice, good job. They can edit in different way, but it looks quality, so many things you can do.
No, like AI is a good editor right now. I think that's one of the better use cases. Like, one thing I've been using it for is taking sort of jargony marketing copy that people inside our company write, and then I like OpenAI's playground instead of ChatGPT. It's just a little bit better. But using the OpenAI playground to just ask it to like rewrite this copy using like simpler, more concise text with active verbs. And it helps if you use some of the language of an editor when you're doing your prompts there. because then it'll respond a little bit better. I think it's the same thing for images as well. I don't know if have you played around with like Dolly and Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and like those tools for creating
Yeah,
digital
yeah,
images? Yeah,
yeah. I
like that.
played with many. Yeah. Mhm.
It's amazing, right? Like I make all of the hero images for my newsletter now using that. I'm not a designer and it's like, holy shit, this is incredible. But I'm not as good at using the tool as the creative director on my team who can like tell it like every little detail and element of what he
Uh-huh.
wants, right? So it's still that ability to tell the AI what you want the way you would direct like a younger employee on your team or an intern on your team to be like, here's how you should be writing this piece differently. Here's how you should be designing differently. Like that's how you really unlock the breakthrough work from these tools. So it's this interesting balance where you still need to know like what you're talking about and what you really want.
Yeah, yeah, nice, nice. Um, uh, let's talk about crafting storytelling style. Even even more.
Uh,
For example, when I listen to Gary Vee, he's famous about sharing
yeah.
content online, and he always replies the same. I was born in ex-Soviet Union, in Russia, and I got this story from him like. I don't remember. It's really hard to count, like 100 times.
Hmm.
He always replies the same story. He can start from the story and lead content in the different direction. Can you tell? Is it good idea to uh, tell the same story? For example, if I have many products, if I have many e-commerce pages, and is it good idea to share the same story, or it's better to leave on place like, I don't know, about us page, or just in one place? It's enough. What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on the context and the audience you're trying to reach, right? So say like an e-commerce page. It depends what value you're trying to provide to the reader. Like the classic thing that everyone complains about is take recipe content, right? You go to want to get a recipe for like making chicken franchise or making seafood gumbo. But first you have to read like a 1,400 word personal essay from the food blogger before you get the recipe, basically to make you scroll. And so like you see more display ads most of the time.
Yeah.
And everyone complains about that because what the user is trying to accomplish on that is getting a recipe, not like hearing about this story of the seafood gumbo that your great grandmother made in New Orleans. And I'm sure it's a great story, but that's not what the person is looking for. So context really matters, right? If you're on an e-commerce page, someone probably just wants to understand like, what is this like product I'm buying? Like, what are the reviews for it? What's the price? What does it do? How fast is it going to ship to me? They don't need like an entire story about how it was made. If that is like they're coming to that page off of like an Instagram ad, maybe, it's sustainable and yada, yada, yada. A little bit of that will give good context. But, storytelling is best used in contextually the right way. So probably in that case, say with e-commerce story, what might be a good universal story to tell, a la Gary Vee, is like the values of your company. So what make it special? Like, is it, all manufactured in the United States, like using like sustainable materials? And this is the story of like why we as founders decided to start this company. We were working at, big corporation Y. We were seeing all of the incredible waste that was going on. We were seeing how workers across the world were being mistreated by this company. And we thought, we're going to make baby toys in a way that actually is creating a better world for our children that we're buying them from. And so that's what inspired us to make this company and to handcraft these toys and these products for you. Like that type of universal story, I would say, yeah, should be a part of a lot of your advertising to bring people in. But then when you get to the actual page, like think about what they want, which is probably just the nuts and bolts of the price and how to buy it.
Nice, nice. Once I watched a presentation about a new Apple Watch. Tim Cook shared this Apple Watch, and he didn't share features that this Apple Watch is great. He shared 3 stories how Apple Watch can decide problems of 3 different people And after watching this presentation, I got the feeling I needed. I want to have this Apple Watch that can decide my problems, simplify my life. And I bought 3 pairs for me, for my son, my wife. They probably kill me, if I
Yeah.
just buy only for myself. But can you tell how to craft such stories that create the feeling of owning, of having it? Because, for example, when I watch a presentation of new BMW, it's not like Apple Watch that I can buy right now. But anyway, I see happy people who drive this car. I don't know about these features. Yeah, okay, I can find it. On a website I can find special I don't know, blog where I can read all features. But in most cases, in the first visible screen or video, I see happy people and nice looking car. So can you tell how to create the feeling of owning something by sharing story?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that experience you just told is a really great example, right, of kind of the sequence of it. So when you first, what drove you to that top of funnel, like that first exposure to Apple Watch, with those stories that put you in the position of that person, right? That could be solving a really big problem in your life with this watch. And you thought, man, that could be me. Like I could be optimizing my sleep and so much more productive at work. I could leave my phone at home and go out for a run and not be so tethered to all my apps, but still be able to text and call my wife and kids, right? You could put yourself in that picture. And that's creating a really relatable story that Tim Cook is doing right there. But I bet when, you went to actually buy the watch, you didn't need to read all of those stories all over again, right? Like you just wanted to know, how do I
Yeah.
order this as soon as possible? Um, so when you think about like, I guess your question is like, how do we really like find a way to tell these stories to put ourselves in that person's shoes? Um, I'd say you have to really understand your audience and who you're trying to sell to. Like this is, I think, really the number one thing when it comes to storytelling, and it even just comes to marketing in the first place. Like marketing is literally understanding your market, which means understanding your buyer. And you need to know that buyer really deeply. Like, what are their challenges? Like, what are their hopes? What are their aspirations? Um, where do they most want to get to in life? What are the insecurities that they worry they're not doing well enough? And if you can really know that buyer, like almost like a person in your head, like a friend that you are talking to and giving advice to, like over a drink at happy hour, if you can make your audience your muse, your creative muse, then it becomes so much easier to tell a story for that one person. You know, we taught one of the rules that the AI got taught about Vonnegut for his rules of writing was to write for just one person. And when you can craft
Yeah.
that buyer in your head really, really tightly, and you are creating that story for just one person, that's how you start to create that type of emotional story that breaks through. And so that means like literally just spend the time to talk to your audience. Like not everything is something that we can get from doing search research on what are they searching for the most, or what channels do they post on the most on social media, or like what are some buyer demographics we can get. They're a 40-year-old man who lives in the Midwest and has 3 kids and 2 dogs. Like it's useful demographics to know, but it won't really tell you what makes that person want to get up in the morning, what their greatest fears are. But actually talking to them about the challenges they're facing will. And that's what really gives you like those great creative insights that lets you tell truly human stories.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Uh, I'm interested about common mistakes. Can you list mistakes that companies still do by crafting their stories? And can you unite with marketing because you're head of marketing in a team? So, any insights? What common mistakes companies do, and how to find a much better way?
I think a lot of companies think about, what do I want to say, right? What is just the message that we want to get out there? What are we trying to sell? rather than what does our audience really want? Like, how am I
Yes.
delivering value to them? Audience first, customer centric, or buzzwords you hear all the time from marketers, but I a lot of times it isn't acted upon. So it's one, like, really truly thinking about not what am I trying to get out of the story I'm telling or piece of content I'm creating, but what value, what am I giving to my audience? What am I teaching them? What sort of entertaining or emotional experience are they going to want to walk away with? And a commitment to that is probably the biggest mistake. I think the second is an over reliance on outdated SEO tactics. So just thinking that I'm just going to create a bunch of generic content that uses these keywords that my competitors have done before, and just posting a ton of that content and expecting like magically you to build up an audience or even to rank. Because when you're just creating a lot of that generic content in mass, um, your chances of ranking for any highly competitive keyword are super low. And your chance of ranking for lower long tail keywords is essentially like a game of chance. Like, it's a roll of the dice. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But if you're not introducing anything new into the world, you're not going to like earn backlinks from valuable domains that are going to link to it. You're not going to attract an audience with that content because it's not very good. And this is just still an outdated tactic that I see a lot of companies think is still the best way to build up a content program. But honestly, it's kind of a waste of time. Um,
Mhm.
I think also not fully understanding, like, what does your brand believe in? Like, what is the fundamental belief system that you have about how the world could be better for your customers that is unique to you and is unique to your perspective? Because all of your best stories, all of your best, kind of brand moments, or ways that you communicate your brand through events, through different themes you're talking about, through your thought leadership, like, it comes to that. You have to know what is your why, for why you started your company, why you exist, for the world that you want to create. And a lot of people don't really know that, and it's a tough thing to figure out, and it takes time to figure out, but it's really, really important.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about how to find the balance between knowing or learning your customers and using intuition and experience. It's interesting, because I spoke with a few big influencers, and many of them don't know their customers, but they usually play themselves. They, for
Mhm.
example, can share thoughts that they have, and people follow them because they love it. So probably it's natural way to get customers because they are the same. And once I read interesting book about girl. She was an introvert, so introvert. But once she decided to post content about herself, and million people are the same, started to follow her because million people are the same. So I'm interested about to finding the balance between learning your customers and using intuition because sometimes we need to test, to analyze, to figure out what actually will work for us.
Yeah. I would argue that in both those cases, they probably know their customer more than they think, right? So, like, those influencers that are playing themselves, like, they know what's funny to their friends, right? They're getting like feedback from like people in their social circle who watch their videos. Like, that's probably who they're creating for. Most of the time, like Corporate Bro, right? One of the most popular, like, satire corporate accounts. Like, it's the sort of jokes that probably worked at every happy hour he was ever at, and like where he would make fun of the way that his company operates. Um, so you still have an audience in your mind that you're creating for, but you might not like know your customers intimately because it's a bunch of people behind, the TikTok, like button, or on Instagram, but you still sort of know who that audience is. Take the girl who's an introvert, right? Well, she's almost creating content for herself in a way, or probably her other introverted friends. And what do they find like funny and relatable about being an introvert? But that's like a great example of relatability right there, right? Like, the reason that tons of other people found it relatable is because, introverts are whatever, 53% of the population. And hearing someone else like express in a very like just super authentic, like real way. Like, what is the experience of being an introvert around like all those crazy extroverts out there? That makes you want to engage with that content and feel like that person like gets you and knows you.
Yeah, nice. Okay, Joe, I have the question about your experience. I have many students in my network, and some of them are looking for ways what to learn today, how to develop their skills. And let's imagine you started from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. Just it's your first day. What will you do today to learn more about storytelling?
It's a great question. A book that I would recommend that everyone read is The Storytelling Animal by Jonathan Gottschall. It is the book that sent me down the rabbit hole of really understanding the way that our brain understands stories, about how stories are very key to who we are as human beings. Stories are probably the most human thing that there is. They're the way that we survived for millennia. They're the way that we were able to come together and build societies and cultures and pass down lessons from generation to generation. Neanderthals were literally stronger and smarter than us, but we are the species of the Homo species that survived because we were able to cooperate and work in groups, mostly through shared stories and shared myths. So I think once you sort of read that book, which is also like wildly entertaining, like he's a great writer and a great storyteller. It's also a pretty quick read. It opens up your eyes in terms of the way that stories operate on a fundamentally human level. And then past that, like, I really encourage people to practice your craft. Like, you can read a lot about storytelling, but really the best way to hone it is to do it, is to write, record, but then also find people that you can trust to give you good constructive feedback on what's working and what's not. Um, in When you're learning to become a writer, there's this thing called a writing workshop. Like, I went to Sarah Lawrence College, which is a small liberal arts school outside New York, and we had a lot of like small creative writing classes that were seminars. So it's 15 people around a table, and each week you read two people's stories, and you go first saying things that that worked for the story, and then comes the critique, which is like the red pen, like all the things that didn't work. And it can be like really brutal, but it's also one of the most valuable things you can do for honing your storytelling, your language, your chops, and also developing like this trusted community of people that you can go to evaluate your work. And that just makes people better so much faster than anything else. A lot of times we don't get that, right? We might see that, oh, this post popped off on LinkedIn or TikTok or Insta, and this post didn't, but we don't really know why. So finding those trusted people that can help you hone your craft is just really, really valuable. And I wouldn't discount the importance of doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more with that because I can read 100 books how to, I don't know, how to do SEO, how to get marketing results, but without doing something, without practice, you can't get results. It's the same, I don't know, if I read 100 books how to play soccer, it's impossible to compete with Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, many others who prefer to hit a ball 1,000 times for an hour than to read the books how to play soccer. Because once I got the question from listener, and he asked me, if I listen all your episodes, can I become a great marketer? I told, no, you can't. You don't need to listen all episodes. Choose interesting topics, listen to them, and implement, practice, do something, because it's more important than over learning. For example, people can forget about new insights for a few days. I can forget for a few hours. Give me new insights, I can forget fast. But if you implement, if you share with others, you can memorize them. You can test and find. I couldn't agree more with that. Okay, Job, let's talk about the future. Many things are coming. Many of them we have, like ChatGPT. You mentioned about Playground on OpenAI. So, can you tell what kind of future will be in your prediction? Because probably these tools can change the world that we know, and many people are worried. Is it good idea to start learning about storytelling, about marketing, if AI will replace humans? What do you think?
Yeah, AI is not going to replace humans. It is going to make us a lot more efficient. It's going to be a great tool for our creativity, but ultimately, like marketing itself is a human practice. We're trying to reach other people. Um, so that's really the key, right? It's how we leverage these tools to make us super creators, to make us super marketers. Um, the disciplines that you really need to learn is more of the fundamentals, right? Like the technologies that you utilize as a marketer and storytelling change, but the craft of it doesn't. And that really comes down to a lot of the fundamentals that we've talked about already. Like, do you really understand your audience and how to hone compelling messaging to them? Do you understand like the fundamentals of storytelling and how to use tension to hook someone in? Um, do you understand how to, just think about making a business case inside of your company, right? And communicating one to one with your CEO or your CRO, which is probably one of the most underrated skills in marketing because marketing is really misunderstood and the attribution often isn't clear of the impact that you're having. So, can you tell a story about what your team is doing internally, right? And have all those soft skills to be able to grow your program and do the things that are really going to have the biggest impact. Um, and of course, like it's important to be on top of the latest trends. Like with AI, I vacillate between feeling incredibly excited about all the things that I can do. Like Notion AI came out yesterday, and like, holy crap, I can create an entire go to market plan template with one command and don't have to do that myself, which is like one of the things I hate the most. Um, but then I also feel anxious, right? Because I know this is going to fundamentally change the way we work, that the people who understand this technology the best are going to have a big competitive edge over everyone else. So how do I make sure that I'm on top of it as much as possible and that my team is experimenting as much as possible so that we do have that edge? So you need to I think that anxiety is a good thing to feel right now, but it just means learn how to use those tools to do the things that are always going to be important about marketing and storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, love it, awesome. And by the way, the Hill ask my opinion about AI because I usually share controversial opinion. Many people think that writing will be fine. AI can replace just low and mediocre writers. My opinion is different because we are only in the beginning of this AI journey. And yeah, I agree. People will have jobs, but they need to adapt. And I think it's the same like tractors. When farmers got tractors, they forgot about digging manually, this land because tractor can do. But people started to use tractors. Farmers started to use tractors to take this land. And I think AI is the same. People will be uh, controllers, organizers, even writers, for example. You can't compete with AI to write faster, but you can, I don't know, create tasks for AI. You can edit, getting results. And for me, I think that people will be controllers of the process. It's my prediction, but we will
Yeah.
see,
I,
future.
I, I, I think for certain types of writing, sure, but there's inherent limitations with large language models where they're never probably going to be 100% factually accurate or solve
Yeah.
the hallucination issue. If you listen to like Gary Marcus, the author of Rebooting AI, who's founded a bunch of AI companies, he had a kind of viral podcast in Ezra Klein where he broke this down. But he's really good to read for sort of like the not the like hype deafening or
Mhm.
hype softening opinion on it. I see where you're coming from, but I do think that AI content will never allow us to tap into our own personal stories. Maybe the way we tell that story is increasingly more AI supported than it is today. But there is going to continue to be that desire for like the type of stories that only humans can tell and that a machine can't really replicate.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a really interesting future for sure. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it will. AI will develop its own sense of selfhood, and then we're really in trouble and be able to talk about its experience as an AI marketer.
Yeah. Agree. Okay, Joe, it's a big pleasure to get on my show, to learn from you. Tell our audience the best way how to learn more about you, how to read your book, how to reach out to you.
Yeah, the book is called The Storytelling Edge. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where books are sold. I have a newsletter on the science of storytelling on LinkedIn. So you just search on LinkedIn for The Storytelling Edge, or you just follow me on LinkedIn, Joe Lazer. You can sign up for that there. It's read by 137,000 marketers and creators each week. So I hope you become one of them. And it was great to be here today.
Nice. And the final question about your book, because I have a huge list of books, a lot of books that I need to read. So and it's hard to choose to read all of them. I need to choose priorities. Can you share benefits that I can get and my audience can get by reading your book?
Sure. You will learn the keys to telling stories that make your audience's brain light up and hook them in. And you will learn how to apply those lessons to create content for your brand and to build and really sell in a brand storytelling or content marketing program inside of your organization. So if this is something that you want to tell more stories in your job as a marketer, this book will really help you.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to put this book on my list, guys. You need to read this book because you can see a lot of valuable insights. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for listening and watching us. Joe, it's a big pleasure. Thank you again. I love all your insights, so valuable. And see you next time.
Thank you.